Hello and welcome to Odds on Europa League match day 3. As every show for the Europa League, we've chosen the best games to analyze with Alvaro Romeo, with Dani Fisichella in this third match day, with some teams already or almost in the last 16 round. For instance, Liverpool. So let's analyze the games with you as well. Remember to leave your tips, your comments, and of course, press the like, subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. And if you are looking for a bookmaker, remember that you still have the option to sign up with 1xBet and with the exclusive welcome offer thanks to Expedia, 130% in the welcome offer. Just use our promo code. You have the link also in the description. So let's go group by group, starting with Group A. Here we have West Ham leading with 6 points, visiting Greece, visiting El Pireo with Olympiakos. They didn't play at the weekend, Olympiakos against Panathinaikos, the classic of the Greek football. We are going to talk a lot about Greek football in this show, and Alvaro Romeo is our expert there. Only 1 point for Olympiakos, Alvaro. West Ham, they are taking seriously this competition, even winning in Freiburg in Germany. The question mark, I guess, is how serious West Ham are going to take this game, playing again, of course, at the weekend in the Premier League after the harsh defeat in Villa Park.
I think they will take it very seriously. They've got players who will start that didn't start on Sunday against Aston Villa, 4-1 for Aston Villa. For example, Mohamed Kudus just came in the second half, and he has been quite important in the Europa League so far for West Ham United. So yeah, to that question, I would say that West Ham United are going to take it with the right degree of seriousness. And West Ham has 6 points right now. 3 more, and they are pretty much qualified for the next round of the Conference League, because I don't think that with 9 points you can not finish third, and with 9 points you are also on course to qualify for the next round anyway. So yeah, I think that it's impossible not to take a game seriously when the atmosphere is going to be quite decent as well. So I think that this is a must win for Olympiakos, but West Ham will probably find in this game an opportunity to get 9 points. It's a special game for Konstantinos Mavropanos, by the way, the West Ham United player, who is playing in the Europa League, and he was born in Athens. I think that West Ham United can present many challenges to Olympiakos. One of them for me is the corners of James Ward-Prowse. Against Aston Villa, he took 4 or 5, and Emiliano Martinez just couldn't handle them because they were so good, so well taken, so strong, and he puts them just in the middle of the 6-yard box. Is incredible, and 3 assists for him in the Europa League, by the way. And Kudus has scored 2 goals, so the team is pretty decent. Jarrod Bowen, I'm pretty sure that he's going to start too. And when it comes to Olympiakos, it's time to wake up for them. They got only 1 point. They have scored 4, which is not bad in 2 games, but then they conceded 5. Probably the harsh defeat, or the hardest defeat to handle, was the one against Freiburg, 3-2 in the first game. Then they drew with TSC, and it's time for them to wake up. I don't know if they are going to make it, but I'm not ready to commit to the full market, because I think that it's not necessary here, really. We can go for goals, because I think that they are going to happen. So both teams to score, I like it. 170. And whatever goes over 2.5 goals is interesting for me too, and I tell you why. Because I think that goals are expected. There are plenty of goals in the Europa League. In fact, goals are so expected that on Thursday, the highest rate for both teams to score across the 16 games is 191. I mean, goals are happening a lot in the Europa League. So, and the differences between the good teams and the bad teams maybe are not as big as in the Champions League. So yeah, that's why I'm going for both teams to score here.
Many games ended in both teams to score in this group. If Freiburg beat Baka Topola, Dani, and Olympiakos failed to beat West Ham, it's almost game over for the Greek team.
That's pretty much it. The Greek team, who conceded 2 late goals against Freiburg and Baka Topola to squander leads there. They are still top of the league, of course. Olympiakos, despite what happened at the weekend, they are winless in 11 Europa League games. Olympiakos only 2 clean sheets in the last 7 games. And when it comes to the question, will West Ham take it seriously? I think they will take it massively seriously, because here, unlike the Champions League, if you finish top of your group, you go straight into the round of 16 and you avoid the preliminary stages, the preliminary knockout rounds, which means you're playing 2 games less, which is so important in such a packed season. And for a team not having to play those 2 games across February can really make a difference. So yeah, finishing top of the group is so important for a West Ham side that have won the last 8 group stages matches in the Europa League. And they were disappointing though at the weekend. Too many spaces left to Aston Villa, who by the way recorded the 11th straight win at home. Paquetá in particular looked like he was strolling on the pitch. Areola a fault on the first goal, and only 1 away clean sheet in 6 games for West Ham, conceded 16 in the Premier League. Only Brighton, between the teams in the top 16 places, have conceded more. So it is a team that tend to concede chances. We will see changes here, the likes of Kudus, Fornal, Ings, because Moyes is the manager who has made less changes to his starting 11 in this Premier League. Same formation in the last 5 matches. So that's where they're going to make changes. But it's a side that I think have used the money of the sale of Rice wisely, and have strengthened and got more depth. They're the stronger side. I'm going to stay with them. West Ham, Asian handicap minus 0.25, 183. If they draw, you suffer alpha loss. If they win, you win.
Trust on the stronger side. Bacca Topola playing against Freiburg in this group. Only 1.37 for the German team to win. If someone wants to back them as well, let's jump into Group B. This is the most interesting one in the Europa League. And the first game we are going to analyze is the other Greek team. Dani, AEK playing in Marseille, still with many problems. Olympique Marseille, another defeat in the Ligue 1 with your friend Gennaro Gattuso on the bench. Only 1 victory for Rino, and they are still favorites, though, to win this game. Not sure if we should think that Marseille, they are favorites to beat AEK here.
I've seen Gattuso improving them a little bit. He is working a lot on the physical side, on the tactical side, and they have shown some better things in the last couple of weeks. Oh no, it's only been 3 weeks. But they lost the derby against Nice, probably didn't deserve to lose. Nice a very composed team, very calm, keep the possession well, but Olympique Marseille had the chances. Then they were down to 10 men and succumbed in the last 10 minutes. They do struggle to convert chances domestically. They do create them. They don't just put the ball in the back of the net. They only score 5 goals. But they scored 5 goals in the Europa League. So obviously they do have goal scorers in them. Both times against Ajax and against Brighton, they squandered 2 goals lead. So it's also a psychological, nervous issue there. But they do have goal scorers. I mentioned 26 goals in the Europa League for Aubameyang, who's hunting Falcao, who's got the record 30 goals in the competition. So this is going to be an important game for Gattuso. They need to climb the table quickly in Ligue 1. Remember, the objective is to finish in the top 4. Last season, they were a very good side, very energetic under Tudor. They need to rediscover that. Only 1 win in the last 8 games, though, for Olympique Marseille. 3 home clean sheets this season, so also issues at the back. AEK only lost 1 of the last 9 games. Scored in all the important games so far this season, against Olympiakos, against Panathinaikos, 2 against Brighton, against Ajax. They scored against Antwerp in the second leg of the Champions League playoff. They won at the weekend 3-0 under El Pelado Almeida. They are a team that like to keep the ball, to play the ball well. They are not afraid of attacking. Scoring game for me, over 2.75 goals. Just to come back to what Alvaro said, goals are expected in these Europa League fixtures. Careful, because some of these lines might be a trap. Not this one. Over 2.75 goals, 190 for me.
Well, one of the biggest surprises in this Europa League so far was the victory of the Greek team in Brighton, and also Olympique Marseille. Alvaro has bad memories of playing against Greek teams this season.
Well, yeah, they do. They didn't make it to the Champions League playoff. AEK neither, by the way, because they lost to Antwerp, both games, by the way. And Antwerp look really bad in the Champions League. So there is a little bit over there a discrepancy between my initial belief, which is that AEK is pretty decent, and then when you look at who did they lose against in the Champions League playoff, you end up being like, wow, there is a contradiction here. But I think that probably that was, I wouldn't call it an accident, but AEK was probably performing very disappointingly during August, and that's why they couldn't qualify for the Champions League. But for this game, I'm going to follow a very similar logic to the logic I did follow in the Olympiakos West Ham United game. I think that goals will happen. Number one, because Olympique Marseille, for all their issues and all that, in the Europa League, they are scoring a good amount of goals. In fact, they've got 5, with Aubameyang having scored a brace in the first game against Ajax. Then they scored 2 against Brighton and Hove Albion. And I think that they can score here in this game too, because number one, they need it. And number 2, because they've got good strikers. And number 3, because AEK concedes. In fact, AEK is 3rd in the local league, but they concede a bit more than their rivals in the title race, like PAOK, Thessaloniki, Olympiakos, Panathinaikos. I think that AEK concedes a little bit more. The numbers are there. You can check them. So, yeah, I think that this game is both teams to score. Again, maybe being 3rd for AEK, which is something that they are not pursuing, could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise in the long term, because the final of the Conference League is going to be played at their ground, but this is obviously food for thought and something that they wouldn't care too much right now. But anyway, Marseille doesn't look good. In fact, they have only 1 win in 8 against Le Havre, and they lost in the weekend, but they are scoring in the Europa League. As I said, they are playing at home. Both teams to score 170. Where you could also alternatively handicap AEK with an Asian handicap +1 maybe for a 173, but not for me. I think that this is the kind of game in which if the fans and the team, the home team, connect well from the very beginning, maybe Olympique Marseille can have a decent night of football. So both teams to score is fine, 170.
You are both committed to the goals market, and in this group, we are seeing a lot of goals. So I really understand you. Perhaps we also see many goals in the other game in this group, Brighton, Ajax. With Brighton, we are always seeing goals. Usually their games are both teams to score, but they are not in great form, also probably due to their calendar. Alvaro, only no wins in the last 5, only 1 in the last 7. So it's not great, but of course they are super favorite because we are seeing the worst Ajax in their history. They just sacked the manager. They are in relegation spots. It looks like the only smile for Ajax fans is in the Europa League, because at least they got 2 draws.
Yeah, well, they are finding some sort of nadir in the Europa League, and I think that for them right now it's becoming an ordeal to play their local league, the Eredivisie, and Ajax right now, look, they lost in the weekend. They lost 4-3 to Utrecht, and it's now 8 games without a win for Ajax, which is unthinkable. This is, by the way, their worst run since the introduction of professional football in the Netherlands in 1954. It's incredible. Obviously, yesterday, Monday, the manager was sacked, so Maurice Stein won't be there, as you say, Edu. The caretaker manager is Maduro. You will remember him because he had a long spell at Sevilla, at Valencia, followed by another spell at Sevilla. So he spent like 5-6 years in Spanish football. He was a decent defender, and difficult job for him now. Ajax has to be clever now. Let's see up there who has the power to suggest a manager, because Misling, that the sporting director, left about a month ago because his job had been terrible. He wanted to change so many things at Ajax. Ajax has been so poor this season that the double chance for them at the Amex Stadium of Brighton, a club that is playing in Europe for the first time in many years, if not ever, a double chance for Ajax X2 pays 350. 350 for Ajax. It's incredible. And for example, if you check the negative Asian handicap for Brighton and Hove Albion, it's crazy low. I think that you have to go to Asian handicap -2 for Brighton and Hove Albion to find something that goes in the region of 2. It's absolutely crazy. Playing against Brighton is not easy, but the season hasn't been easy either for Brighton and Hove Albion. Of course, it hasn't helped the fact that Pervis Estupiñán, Enciso, Lamptey have been out. But generally speaking, I think that Brighton is suffering a little bit from the rotations, even though against Manchester City they improved in the second half. They conceded 2 goals in the first half, and then Ansu Fati in the second half cut the deficit, but they couldn't score the equalizer. So Brighton is suffering as well a little bit. I think that from the congestion of the calendar. A player that I will single out from Brighton is João Pedro, who has scored 3 goals in the Europa League, but I don't like this player at all. I think that he is the kind of player who enhances his statistics with penalties, and he never gives an option or a good option to his teammates. It's very frustrating to me to see him so far this season. Ansu Fati, however, I think that the other day with Mitoma, he found a very good partnership, and even though Ansu Fati did nothing with Spain back in the international window, he played decently in the second half at the Etihad the other day. And one word on Milner. I don't think that Milner is ready for high-octane football. I saw it last year at the Diego Armando Maradona ground. Napoli destroyed Milner in particular, and Joe Gomez to a lesser extent, and Milner was destroyed again against Manchester City the other day. I'm going to go for the following. Brighton to win, and over 2.5 goals in that game, 170.
In this game, Dani, we have the problem that it's impossible to trust Ajax, and the odds for Brighton are too low.
They are, and I think this could be a trap. Remember that Zerbi a few weeks ago said the team is not ready to play every 3 days, and I think he's showing they are very aware of how stretched their team he's going to be, he might be. And they got few injury problems, as Alvaro mentioned. Also, Solimarch, Welbeck will be out. They do struggle defensively, and perhaps they might revert. I know the Zerbi is never going to play a defensive side, but they're going to be perhaps a little bit more mindful. And also Ajax, they might try to stop the rot and try to be a little bit more defensively mindful. Whether they can do it or not, that's difficult. But when things are going so badly for you, probably the easiest thing with a new manager on Ajax coming on as well is just to go back to the basic, be solid, be difficult to beat. So that's why I think it is a trap, the high goal line here.
Who is going to the basics? Brighton.
It could be Ajax. It could be Ajax.
But Ajax basics are totally the opposite.
Yeah,
always.
But you do try. You might want to try and say, look, it's not.
No, they have tried the other basics with this season, and it hasn't worked.
The defense
they have lost their identity completely. So their basics are, in fact, the opposite of what they have been doing this season.
But they will always try to play expansive. They always try to go with three.
Not always, not this season.
Well, hopefully with the new manager coming on, I think this is. I mean, from a betting perspective, I think having such a high line on the goals market, it could be a trap here, because we all think this is all gonna go out and attack toe to toe. But when it's such a difficult period, it could be the conservative side that comes in. Well, I mean, that's the line I'm trying to take, but I might be proven wrong. I mean. Look, no other team outside the relegation zone has conceded more goals than Brighton. They also have the second best attack in the Premier League. They are without a clean sheet in 13 Premier League games. So they do concede a lot of goals, but doesn't mean that the trend has to continue all the time. There are odds game, or there are changes in players' attitudes that maybe apply to this one when two teams are not living a great moment. Look, for Ajax, it is difficult to argue against it, what you said, Alvaro, but perhaps they just sit a little bit deeper. They've lost a lot of experienced players in the last few seasons. Probably they lost far too many. A big rebuild, as we mentioned, also sporting director leaving, manager leaving. Their goal differential, expected goal differential, is 9th amongst 18 Eredivisie teams. The defense is atrocious. Will they be able to keep a clean sheet? Probably not. Is it necessarily going to be a high-scoring game? Not as much as the bookmakers suggest. Here I'm going to go for under 3.5 goals, 191, which is still a very high-scoring game, but it might not be a crazy one. Look, for Ajax, the best possible scenario is to finish third in this group and go to the Conference League, where they got a better chance of making experience and probably advancing. I'm going to go under 3.5 goals, 191.
Well, 16 goals conceded for Ajax also in the Eredivisie, so two teams that concede a lot also in this Europa League, so that's why the line for over 2.5 goals is very low. Dani is going in the opposite way because of that. Group C, this is also very level. It's that level that every team has 3 points. We are gonna focus in Sparta Prague. Rangers. Prague beat Aris but lost against Betis, even if they took the lead. In Seville, Dani, for Rangers is also not an easy season. They've sacked the manager. They even lost to Aris Limassol playing away from home. That's probably why Sparta Prague, they are favorites to win this game.
They are, but again, I think the new manager bounce for Rangers might play a part, considering also the caliber of manager that they hired. Paul Clement, extremely experienced, very good pedigree, also at the European level, won titles with Bruges and Genk. Last season with Monaco was a little bit disappointing, but I think they are the right man for the job. It's a difficult task because they have to make a lot of ground on Celtic. Only won one of the last 12 away games, Rangers, but at the weekend 4-0 win against Hibs. 2 goals from Sima. He's the most informed striker, and obviously for Clement, if some of the key players are returning from injuries, things will improve. Certainly the style of play improved against Hibs, but it wasn't a big task because they've been dreadful so far. The return of Todd Cantwell is important. Of course, he's changed a little bit the formation. Clement moving on from the 4-3-3 that sometimes didn't fit. The Rangers fans are not convinced about Dessers, about Lambers and their prolificacy in front of goal. This is a tough one, of course, because Sparta Prague had a high-scoring side, but they also concede quite a lot. They played the 6 European games so far this season. The first one finished 0-0, and then there were 23 goals, 12 scored by the Czech side, 11 conceded, average 4.6 goals per match. So it could be a high-scoring side. And they are a team that, yes, only lost one of the last 11 games. They do concede goals, but they go out on the attack. They won 4-0 at the weekend, 6 straight home win. They got a couple of injuries issues there. They're without Kreki, who is Czech Republic midfielder, Haraslin, who plays for Slovakia, Birmancevic, by the way, who's in loan from Toulouse, should be fit to start. I trust Rangers not to get beaten here. X2, 189.
Well, Alvaro, do you trust also Rangers? You saw them, I'm sure, against Betis, but away from home, Scottish teams, different situation.
Yeah, no, but perhaps the odds are favoring too much Sparta Prague. For example, Daniele mentioned the double chance for Rangers. Even you can get a little bit less money, but limit the risk, if you like, with an Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Glasgow Rangers, which is pretty decent. I mean, that pays 167, and it's not that bad at the end of the day, because, for example, if they draw, you will be winning your whole stake, and if they lost by 1, you will be suffering have a lose. Of course, if they won, you will be winning as well. Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Rangers could be an option, but there is another one that pays exactly the same, which is both teams to score. And I'm going to keep it here. Sparta Prague, they conceded a decent amount to the first very important game they have had this season against an opponent of their level, or bigger level, obviously, was the game against Betis, and Betis won that one. So, again, I apply this policy to Rangers, but I will apply it to Sparta Prague as well. Sometimes the home form cannot be taken into consideration when it comes to European games, because, as I said a couple of shows ago, I think that Celtic Glasgow with Ange Postecoglou spent like 35 games unbeaten at home, which was, or 40, which was a record. And then in the Europa League or wherever they played in Europe, that didn't have a translation. But anyway, Rangers, they won in the weekend. I think that Sima is in a very good form as well, scoring in the last games. Steven Davis is still out, I believe, and Matondo too. But, I think that both needs to score again. I wouldn't say that it's a safe bet, but I find it likely to happen.
Okay, in this group, we have also Aris Limassol Betis. Odds for Betis, if you trust them, is 1.95, not bad. If you think only in the club budget, but Betis away from home and in Europe, they are not very reliable, to be honest. Let's jump into Group D. Here, Sporting Lisbon and Sturm Graz should fight for a spot in the next round. I guess Atalanta should be the first, Dani, because they got an important victory away from home in Lisbon in the previous game. And I think they are doing so far a good season, quite reliable. They won at the weekend. They haven't screwed it up yet. They are getting the victories that they should, I think. And this is a tough game in Graz, in Austria, with a team that is top of the Austrian league, even ahead of Salzburg.
Atalanta, another clean sheet. That's the big news. 7 clean sheet of the season. Still haven't conceded a goal at home. And against Genoa, they managed in the second half to find a winner, found another gear. Although Genoa could have scored, very good save from Carnesecchi in the end, but credit for keep going. Played against with a front three with Scamacca, Lukman, and De Catelare. This time didn't quite work. The Belgian wasn't properly tuned in. Gasperini subbed him in the second half, but they do have a lot of quality coming on the bench. The likes of Pasalic, Muriel, Miranchuk, 3 attacking players that really can affect the game. And Scamacca looks fit. Well, hopefully he will be fit, because I think he's Italy's best bet to go into the Euros. He scored against England. He should be Italy's number 9. But, after a very difficult season at West Ham because of muscular injuries, he's coming back to his best. But yes, I think there is something strange about this Atalanta side. Credit to Gasperini always for reinventing the tactical nuisances, the formation, and evolving a lot. It's no longer that Atalanta that goes gung-ho, that goes and score 2 goals at Anfield, 3 goals at Valencia, concede goals at home. I think this is a little bit more cautious Atalanta, also because the players are a little bit more experienced, but there is still a lot of youth there. For example, the likes of Scalvini, promising defender, but again, someone that has to mature quite a lot. I'm beaten in the last 5 away European games, by the way. Atalanta could win at Lisbon. Sturm Graz won the last 6, drew against Salzburg earlier in the season, scored at home against Sporting, against PSV Eindhoven as well. And last year, they were unlucky in the Europa League, Sturm Graz, because they finished with 8 points alongside Feyenoord, Lazio, and Midtjylland, and got knocked out because of the goal difference. They earned 2 draws against Lazio last season. They are very organized. They play an attacking style of football under Ilzer, the manager who's there since 2020, and they got a few good players. Alexandre Pras, 22 years old, already with the national side, scored at the weekend. As I said, I think there is something weird about this Atalanta winning, not keeping clean sheets. I'm gonna go for a 1x here, 183. Probably is a draw, okay, but I do fancy the 1x, 183.
Well, after praising Atalanta and Gasperini's tactics, Dani thinks Atalanta are not gonna win. In Austria,
they can't win always. They can't always win. I think sometimes something has to give. So far, they've been really good, by the way.
It's an open game, and the odds are very good. Either if you go for Atalanta, I think it's decent odds. It double your money, or if you go for the surprise, it's 4, Alvaro.
Yeah, I'm gonna take everything that Daniele says, and I will apply it to my odds. And
Atalanta to win.
I'm gonna go pretty much. I'm gonna flag. I'm going to flag Atalanta winning, which is a 205. But why not to think that an Asian handicap minus 0.25 can be the right thing here? Yes. If they lose, you suffer half a lose, or you lose half your stake. Okay, fine, whatever. If they win, you win all of it. And that will pay 171. It's a handicap minus 0.25 for Atalanta. It's not that I'm going to keep Atalanta for my ACCA, because Sturm Graz is having a good season. They are topping the league. Again, this is a contradiction with what I said before. We shouldn't take too much into consideration what they are doing locally, domestically, but a little bit at least. And Sturm Graz, they haven't lost at home. Yeah, that's true. They are in a good run of form. Also, there is a player who is scoring goals. The young, for example, William Bobbing, 2 goals in the Europa League this season, even though in the local league he is not among the best scorers of Sturm Graz, but in the Europa League the thing has changed. And he's hitting good numbers. And when it comes to Atalanta, look, leaders in this group, they beat Genoa in the weekend in a more difficult league. I think Coop Mainers is out. Yeah. But anyway, new players are coming in. For example, I don't know what Daniele thinks about Giorgio Scalvini, but the UEFA flags him as someone to follow. 19 years old, 194, Italian centre back. Who knows? Maybe
he's good. He's good. He does a lot of things good, none of them perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, it's good. He has to improve. But if you look at the game he had against England, he's at fault in pretty much all the 3 goals. He has got room to he has got room to improve. But 19 years old, playing for Atalanta, playing for Italy. Yeah, I mean, it's a good prospect.
A step up, then. Come on, do it a bit better. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, 19 years old, playing for Gasperini, playing for Italy. Someone to follow, I guess. And then Atalanta are the leaders in balls recovered in this competition, which will probably remind the Sturm Graz of Salzburg, because Salzburg, in the higher competition, the better competition, the Champions League, are also always leading the balls recovered chart as well. For this game, as I said before, Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Atalanta. And since Atalanta are scoring a very decent amount of goals, even in the Europa League as well, they scored over 1.5 against Raco. They scored over 1.5 against the Sporting Club de Portugal in Lisbon. Atalanta to score over 1.5 goals following this logic could be pretty decent as well. And that pays 191. And I like it. I like it a lot. Atalanta to score over 1.5 goals, 191.
In this group, Sporting are playing against Rakov Czestochowa. If you are back in the Portuguese club, it's 1.84 for them to win away. Group E. Here we have Liverpool, the big favorites in this competition, playing at home against Toulouse, 6 points. Alvaro, if they win, is already 9 points. I guess Klopp is going to use this game also to do some tests, some turnover in the always difficult to give some rest to the players to the always difficult Premier League. And that's why perhaps we shouldn't be crazy about going for Asian handicaps for Liverpool against Toulouse.
No, because depends. Maybe Liverpool, and I have seen it, in fact, in the last game Liverpool played in the Europa League, that sometimes they don't play the whole game with the needed level of tension.
Exactly.
And that's why the other day, in the previous game, I don't remember the opponent right now, maybe you can help me here, they played against Union Saint-Gilloise, and they beat them 2-0 with the goal from Diogo Jota in the 92nd minute. But Union Saint-Gilloise had a couple of one-on-one chances with Alisson in the extra time, because Liverpool was making it too difficult to play from the back. So I think that the level of focus and tension is not full in Liverpool, and that's why maybe, as you say, that going for the Asian handicap is not the best idea, because Liverpool is rather likely that they win games in the Europa League, but perhaps they are not going to hit the 4-0, 6-0, 5-0 market as sometimes they do in the Premier League. But anyway, Liverpool has 6 points, and they have gotten 9 wins out of 12 games this season. I think they are going to be maybe fighting for the title in England, and I think the Europa League is not a burden for them at all. Obviously, they are the favorites to win it, rightly so. It pays 4.0 for them to win the Europa League. Let's see, because in the Champions League, some big teams are going to fall into the Europa League, and then the landscape is going to change a little bit. But, there was a confirmation in the game against Everton that the third midfielder in Liverpool right now, until Curtis Jones and Thiago Alcantara recover completely, and Thiago is about to come back, the third midfielder is Gravenberch. and he did score in the Europa League in the previous game. And Gravenberch is a player that came pretty much before the transfer deadline, and I thought that Tendo maybe was going to be the player who played as a holding midfielder, but no, it's Gravenberch, and he's doing a decent job. And then Liverpool has many attackers because, for example, the likes of Darwin are not playing as much in the Premier League, so they are getting the chance in the Europa League, and they are eager to please the manager. So this is a good thing. Sometimes the individual agendas of footballers, Darwin Núñez trying to please the manager, help the games to have more goals. And when it comes to Toulouse, look, bad moment for them. 2 wins in the last 10 games. And then Zakaria Abukal, player who has scored a few goals this season, should be out. But other than that, my mind here and my focus here and my approach here is all Liverpool, irrespective of Toulouse, really, because I think at Liverpool at home, they are a story on their own. So I'm going to back them with the following. There is an interesting market that you should know. Liverpool to win at 30 minutes, it pays 191. But since Liverpool has lapses of concentration and they don't play with full focus the whole 90 minutes, as I said before, I prefer over 1.5 goals in the second half, which pays 170. That market is pretty decent, and we saw, for example, against Union Saint-Gilloise, that the game got a little bit crazy in the second half. I think that can happen in Anfield. Otherwise, maybe Liverpool to win the second half, yes, but the money for that is not particularly great.
Well, Liverpool, they are so favorites, but I wouldn't say Toulouse are doing a bad season or they are that bad. 4 points is a good tally in the Europa League, and also in the French League. They are in the middle of the table, drawing a lot of games, but being very competitive, as they showed against better teams than them, I think, in the Ligue 1, like Rennes or Brest recently, Dani.
Yeah, they only lost 2 of the last 11 games. They drew 1-1 with PSG early in the season. They don't score many goals. That's the pitfall of Toulouse, a team that won last year their first ever trophy ever, a team that was relegated in 2020. They completely rebuilt the team's identity. Now they are owned by the same owners that they own Milan's Redbeard stake funds in the US, and a very intelligent scouting based on data. They call it the Moneyball approach, but they look at the complexity of data to scout players far and wide. I think they got over 15 nationalities, but also they scout in France lower division. They are a very intelligent and organized side, perhaps not the most spectacular one, but is a side that I think is going to go to Liverpool and pose a different threat to what Lask and Union did. I think they're going to be harder to beat this time for Liverpool. Liverpool, which, by the way, against Everton, we have to say they were helped by a couple of referee decisions. Konate should have been sent off in the second half. It's a second yellow. Sean Dyche is right to be upset. The handball from Michael Keane is an handball of these days with VAR. Probably 15 years ago, 10 years ago, would not have been handball. When they were against them, men, they looked a little bit underwhelming. Yes, it was always looked like they were going to score, but they didn't really create a lot of chances. Sometimes it's more difficult to play against them, men. Look, against Spurs, they lost because of the VAR incident. So I think these things, in the end of the day, they compensate themselves. But when it comes to, they got the points they deserve probably. So, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the Europa League, and I do talk for, they told me this, so you have to take this a pinch of salt. When they played against Union Saint-Gilloise, there wasn't a great atmosphere at Anfield. It was packed. Anfield is always packed. But there wasn't like that special atmosphere on the European nights, because probably Liverpool supporters take this Europa League like as a given. They're used to different kind of games, and Anfield is not rocking on the night. They almost think they win by default. The tweets after the games of the Liverpool game against Union Saint-Gilloise were to praise the away supporters who chanted and supported all game long. But that's what supporters should do. It should be the supporters carrying the team forwards and not the other way around. End of the rant. Both to score, 185.
It's too small, I think, the Europa League for a club like Liverpool. So if they rest players, if they gain the points, as you said before, Dani, if they finish first, in this competition, in this group. They won't play until February, until March, and they will skip the playoff with the Champions League teams that fall to this competition. So fair enough. I think for Liverpool fans in this group is Union Saint-Gilloise Lask. The other game, let's jump into Group F. Here the Villarreal Maccabi Haifa is postponed, and we have Panathinaikos Rennes, and this one, Rennes, they are in crisis. They are really, really poor this season. And ninth in France, they lost the derby against Lorient. It's a team that we expect much more, even fighting for the Champions League spots. And the main issue for them, Alvaro, is always playing away from home. Probably against Villarreal, they deserved a point, but they lost in Ligue 1. They are very bad when they play away. And Panathinaikos, as we saw in the European competitions, they can be very dangerous. And at home, for instance, they beat Villarreal deservedly earlier this season.
Yeah, 2-0. 2-0 was the result with goals from Ioannidis and Sporar. And they have been doing okay this season, Panathinaikos, and they are in a better run now that Rennes, by the way, you mentioned their home form, their away form, and Rennes hasn't won a single game away this season. They drew against Lens, which was fine, and then, for example, they lost even to Villarreal. I mean, no one loses against Villarreal these days. No. It was something that I wasn't expecting, perhaps, but Villarreal beat them 1-0.
Reina was the hero, by the way. Reina
was
67 years old, but was the hero.
No, Reina he was born, I will tell you, in 1982. So maybe Reina is already 41, unless he turns 41 now in November or December. He's a year older than I am. It's incredible, really. What a legend. I really like Pepe Reina. As a character as well. When Spain won the World Cup, he was very funny too. He was a showman, really. But I think that this game is the kind of game in which I'm going to apply the policy I've been applying in the games that I'm not too sure about. If there is a constant in the Europa League so far, is the fact that goals are happening. So over 2.25 goals could be interesting because it pays 183. Panathinaikos, they're fourth in the league, and they have scored many goals. They have scored 21, and they are just behind Olympiakos in this department. And Rennes, they are the leaders in attempts in the Europa League. Strange as it sounds, they are at least putting an effort to score the goals all together with Atalanta. They are the leaders of attempts. So I think that this game can be a little bit feisty. Of course, not crazy feisty. Over 2.5 goals, 183.
Well, no victories for Rennes away from home in Ligue 1. Dani, 3 draws and 1 defeat.
Yes, in a bad run at the moment. Lost one, Sadia to Villarreal, lost the last 3, only scored 2 away goals in 5 leagues, in five games. And Panathinaikos defeated Olympique Marseille in the Champions League on penalty, lost to Braga. They got some interesting players. They beat Olympique Marseille 1-0 at home. By the way, Sporar used to play for Sporting Middlesbrough, Juric, Tony Villani used to play for Salernitana, Roberto Mancini's son, Daniel Mancini. Last season, they didn't make it to the group stage of the Conference League, so it's a big improvement this season for Panathinaikos. They are unbeaten so far in the Europa League, and they are only one of the 3 teams who haven't conceded a goal in the Europa League, alongside Slavia Prague and Qarabag, who, by the way, played 6 games so far, Qarabag, but I think they're going to get beaten by Bayer Leverkusen. Panathinaikos has an handicap 0. Look, this is a very good odds, 205 if they draw. You get your money back. This is probably one of the trickiest one to predict, to be fair.
I like these odds, and also could be interesting the odds for Roma to win. Roma Slavia Prague is our last game. Roma to win is 1.85. Happily for me, it looks like, Dani, they are getting better and better, Roma. They beat Monza in the very last minute with El Shaarawy scoring. Then he broke into tears, very emotional, 4 consecutive victories. They play Inter at the weekend. Mourinho doing his show in the sidelines. Slavia Prague won both games also in this competition, is the best team in this competition if we look at the numbers so far. 8 goals scored, 0 conceded. So it's a good game, this one at the Olimpico.
Roma struggled without Dybala against Monza. He was sidelined because of an injury. Should be fit to play Inter at the weekend. Mourinho sent off for making the crying gesture against Palladino. It's the usual, really. There's always a drama when it comes to Roma home matches, but they won by willpower. And in the end, yes, Al-Shaarawy broke in tears because they accused him of illegal betting. And of course, the accusation in that case were false. Keep 2 clean sheets in the last 3. It's a good moment, by the way, for Al-Shaarawy, who had a very good game against England, recalled at the last minute. A very good sacrifice on the left-hand side. He's a player that almost having a second career. Let's see if Lukaku is going to be rested for this one, and he's going to be Belotti up front with Azmoun, because obviously there is the Inter game, the big game for Lukaku, for Inter. We'll talk about this in our Serie A video as well. A curious stats about Roma: they hit the woodwork 40 times in all competition since the start of the last season. Negative record in Europe top 5 leagues. So again, if you look at expected goals they should have scored more goals. Now, let's open a little bit of the history book. This is a game that for the Roma players, team, supporters especially, is particularly emotional. 1996, quarterfinal of the back of the Europa League. Roma travels to Slavia Prague, loses 2-0 in treacherous condition with snow. Poborski scored 2 goals back then. On the way back, on the return, they go 2-0 up. They bring them to extra time, score the 3-0. So it's a perfect night in Rome with even El Principe Giannini scoring and celebrating under Curva Sud, only for Hiri Vavra, which you probably haven't heard of, to score a goal and eliminate them. A real heartbreak for Roma. They've had lots of heartbreaks during these years, the 7-1 defeat at Manchester United, but this is the one that hurts the most. I know it because I know a lot of Roma fans, so there is a little bit of a special revenge for them in beating Slavia Prague again after so many years. Go and have a look on YouTube. Sparta Prague, Slavia Prague, by the way, second in the league behind Sparta. They beat Sheriff 6-0 away from home, only lost 1 of the last 10 matches. Roma win 181.
Indeed, because Roma, they are so good at home. We had doubts when they traveled to Tiraspol, Alvaro, but at home, Roma is almost a no-brainer in Europe.
Yeah, I think that they are going to win it, and I'm going to go for 180, them to win, which pays 180. I like it. I like it a lot. And in fact, I'm going to keep Roma for my ACCA, I believe, because I think that these odds are very inviting, and they will help me enhance the amount of my total accumulator. But yeah, this is the kind of game in which, Slavia Prague gets into this game with better numbers than Roma, because they've got, as you said before, they are the best team in the Europa League, numerically speaking, like Barcelona in the Champions League, with 6 points, a +8 in the goal difference, and 2 clean sheets. Okay, all fine. And then Slavia Prague remain unbeaten in the first division and in the cup as well. And they got 10 wins and 3 draws domestically. That's absolutely fine. And then they beat Servette and they demolished Sheriff Tiraspol, and everything looks good. But they are playing against Roma, and one thing that Jose Mourinho does a lot is against teams that are not the quality of his side. Normally he attacks, and then when he plays against a bigger side, he puts on a display like he did against Sevilla in the Europa League final. So this is a classic Mourinho. And normally in these games, when he anticipates that winning is possible and anticipates that his team is far superior to the opponent, he tends to attack quite a lot. So I think that Roma is going to win it. We're thinking about Lukaku, the individual market, because Lukaku has been scoring in the Europa League. He scored 7 goals in 9 matches for Roma. But as Daniele said, number one, he could be rested ahead of the game against Inter. I don't think so, but it could happen. And then in the Europa League, he never plays 90 minutes. With Roma, never. There are only 2 games to research here. But he played 64 minutes the first time in the first game, and then 80 minutes. So Lukaku to score, which doubles up your bet, 2.0, is the kind of thing that maybe you have to think about when you see the lineup of the game. But yeah, Roma to win.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry?
Yeah, Roma to win is the tip, right, Alvaro?
My tip is Roma to win, yeah, 180.
Good odds to back Roma in this group. We also have Sheriff Tiraspol, Servette, and we are going to skip Group H because here we have Leverkusen really favorite against Karabakh, and then we have Molde Haken, which is the retro game of the week, and Molde is very favorite, by the way. The Norwegian team 1.82. Well, with everything analyzed, Alvaro, which one is your safe bet?
It would be ace and handicap 0 for Roma.
In Roma we trust. This is 1.35, and your safe bet, Dani?
Bayer Leverkusen against Karabakh over 2.5 goals, 140.
ACCA, Dani?
Bachka Topola, Asian handicap +2 against Freiburg. Olympic Marseille, AEK Athens over 2 goals. Roma, Asian handicap 0. Union Saint-Gilloise, Asian handicap 0 as they host Lask. The total odds 344, conservative.
Okay, Basta Topola not to be thrashed by Freiburg. Alvaro, your ACCA?
Yeah, I'm going to focus on big giants here, or bigger teams. Ace and handicap 0 for Betis. Roma to win. Leverkusen to win the second half. Altogether 362.
Thank you, Dani. Thanks, Alvaro. As always in the Europa League, we've learned a lot. See you very soon. Thanks all for watching.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.